In today's episode, we're going to talk about what happens when you ignore all advice and just start. This is one of my favorite topics because it relates to a story that goes way back to 2017. Back in 2017, there was an event called the Titan Games. It was basically like the Olympics for content creators. There were 10 of us who competed in challenges. One of the challenges was physical fitness related, like doing pull-ups and push-ups and things like that. And another one of them was like cooking, and another one of them was like video editing. There was a bunch of different ones, but I was horrible at most of them except for the video editing portion. And so, as I was practicing for this event, I was going around asking all these successful content creators who were also competing for their advice, like, hey, what should I do to prepare? And they would all tell me things like, don't worry about it. Just go out there, have fun. But then they would secretly tell me little things like, make sure you bring your A game. Don't be embarrassed if you suck at some of the things. And so I went into it with pretty high expectation for myself, but not really knowing what to expect. Well, I ended up performing pretty well in the video editing portion, but I ended up bombing at every other portion. And as I was leaving the Titan Games, I ran into this guy, Thomas Frank. Now, Thomas Frank is someone who is a friend of mine, but he's also someone who has been extremely successful on YouTube and in life in general. He's got this amazing channel. He started multiple businesses and sold them. He is a legend. And so, as I'm leaving this competition, I'm feeling pretty bad because I've bombed at everything and I run into him and I say, Thomas, how do you become successful? And without even missing a beat, he said, you ignore all advice and just start. And in this video, we're going to talk about what he meant by that. The first thing that I want to address is the idea that advice is always good to take. It actually isn't. A lot of the times advice is based off of somebody else's experience and their life and their own values and their goals and their dreams. And so if you just take advice without really thinking about where it's coming from and if it aligns with your own personal brand, you could end up making decisions that aren't good for you. I'll give you an example. One of my friends, he wanted to start his own business. And so he asked me for some advice. And so I told him yeah, make sure you write down your business plan. Make sure you do all your market research. Make sure you put together a great team and do all the due diligence. And he ended up doing all those things. He wrote the business plan, did the market research, hired the team, did the due diligence. And he came back to me and he said, thanks for the advice, buddy, but I realized that I didn't want to do any of that stuff and I just wanted to start the business. And I was like, oh, dude, I didn't realize that's what you wanted. And so he ignored all the advice that I gave him, and he just started, and now his business is doing extremely well. And it's because he took risks, and he didn't play it safe. There's this one quote that I read that says something along the lines of, when you follow all the advice, you become average, and when you ignore all the advice, you have the opportunity to become extraordinary. And so one of the things that I think about when I hear that quote is that if you take advice from everybody, then you're going to end up doing what everybody else is doing. How can you truly stand out and be extraordinary if you redoing what everybody else is doing? The answer is you can't. You have to find a way to carve your own path. Now, this doesn't mean that you never take advice. What it means is that you have to use your best judgment, think about your own goals and think about your own risk tolerance, and then decide if you're gonna not take the advice or not. And sometimes that means ignoring the advice. The second thing that I want to talk about is the fact that advice is usually given with good intentions. Most people give advice with good intentions, which means that you shouldn't feel bad about ignoring the advice. In fact, you should thank them for the advice because they were trying to help you, but ultimately you have to do what you feel is right for you. For example, let us say that you in college and you ask your professor for some advice, and they tell you, hey, if you want to get a job after you graduate, you need to focus more on the practical skills that you're relearning in class and less on the theoretical skills. And you appreciate that advice, and you thank them for it, but you decide that you're going to do the opposite, that you're going to focus less on the practical skills and more on the theoretical skills. Well, that's okay because you're pursuing what you think is best for you. Maybe you want to go get a PhD, or maybe you want to go work for a research firm. So you should thank the professor for the advice, but ultimately do what you think is best for you. Now, sometimes advice is given with less than pure intentions, meaning that people might be trying to hold you back because they want to protect you, or they might be trying to hold you back because they read jealous. Either way, you have to remember that you responsible for your own happiness, and you responsible for carving your own path. And so if someone is telling you to do something that doesn't feel right for you, you shouldn't be afraid to just say, "Thank you for the advice, but I'm going to do what I think is best for me." The third thing that I want to talk about is the fact that sometimes advice is just plain wrong. Sometimes you can ask 10 different people for advice, and all 10 of them can give you completely different answers. For example, let us say that you're rethinking about moving to a new city and you ask your friends for advice. Some of them might tell you, "Hey, don't do it. Stay here." Other ones might tell you, "Hey, you should definitely do it." And so you have to be able to look at all the different pieces of advice and decide for yourself what is right for you. For example, let us say that you're redeciding whether or not you should move to a new city and your friends are split right down the middle. Half of them are saying you should move, and half of them are saying you shouldn't move. Well, in that case, you have to look at the pros and cons of each decision and decide for yourself what is right for you. And so in that scenario, you should probably ignore all the advice and just do what you think is right for you. If you think about it, some of the biggest innovations and breakthroughs in history came from people who ignored the advice of others. For example, when Steve Jobs was starting Apple, he was told to lower his standards and make a cheaper computer so that more people could buy it. But he ignored that advice and stuck with his vision, which led to the creation of the Macintosh. Similarly, when Albert Einstein was pursuing his theories about the universe, he was told that it wasn't possible and that it would never work. But he ignored that advice and continued his work, which eventually led to his groundbreaking theories. That we live in a world where it is very easy to get caught up in the opinions of others, but we have social media constantly bombarding us with negativity and people trying to tear us down. But we have to remember that we're the ones who are in control of our own lives, and we have to be willing to take risks and go after our dreams, even if others tell us it is impossible. So the next time someone gives you advice that you're not sure about, remember that you don't have to follow it. Think about your goals and your dreams and decide what is right for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.